Let's be honest for a second. As this generation comes to an end, we can all say that Sony's PlayStation 4 had one of the best generations in recent memory. They've had 2 years of amazing exclusives that took the gaming world by storm. They've managed to see an increase in year over year for the PlayStation 4, which has continued for many years previous. It's sold over 91 million consoles in its lifetime, which is an outstanding number that Sony should be extremely proud of. This, however, wasn't the perfect generation. While Sony had an amazing generation, they still had mistakes that I feel they could polish up for the next generation. While some of these critiques haven't hit the PlayStation in sales, I still felt compelled to make this video and showcase what exactly Sony needs to concentrate on next generation to make them an even more impressive platform and service. But I want everyone to remember, this is just my thoughts on the matter. It doesn't mean they will coincide with what everyone wants in a gaming console. It's just something I would like for Sony to put a lot more effort into. Some might agree with me and others will disagree with me, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, we all want our preferred platform to always strive to be better. And I will also be making a similar video that covers the Xbox. That one will come out in the next week, so keep an eye out for that. But first, let's dive into the biggest problems I see with the PlayStation 4. The first area Sony can really improve upon is cross-platform play. Listen, no matter who you are, no player should ever be against cross-platform play. Having the ability to play with your friends no matter what platform they're on is one of the most sought-after features in gaming. The industry has been trying to break that roadblock for a very long time, with developers going as far as calling Sony out in public about their stubbornness on the topic. CD Projekt Red, Bandai Namco, Wargroove, and Paladin's developers have all called Sony out for the lack of crossplay. Sony is the last line of stubbornness regarding this amazing feature. PC gaming, Xbox, Nintendo, iOS, and Android have all made huge strides towards a cross-platform gaming world. There's no excuse for a multi-billion-dollar company to drag their feet on something that developers want, players want, and quite frankly, the entire gaming community wants in general. But what makes this even more weird is that Sony was all for crossplay for the longest time. They wanted it for Final Fantasy XI and then wanted it for several games for the PlayStation 3 and the early PS4. But once competition got stiff, Sony decided to backtrack on their crossplay hype and started making excuses as to why they didn't want it. I hope they fix this for the next generation because they've already had a PR nightmare with this topic, and it would only get worse when they are the only ones next generation not giving the players what they truly want, which is a cross-platform, play with your friends on whatever device you're on kind of game. And I really hope Sony changes their minds next generation. And that brings us to our next category that Sony has to address this next generation, and it's backwards compatibility. A lot of people know where Sony stands on this front. It's something that I found to be a huge problem with both Xbox and PlayStation until Xbox announced back compat for free as long as you own the 360 games supported. Sony, on the other hand, didn't let people play PS3 or any other generation games on their console and opted for more remasters. This would force customers to rebuy games they might have owned on the last generation of consoles. Executives like Jim Ryan have gone on and said that those old games look so dated that no one will want to play them, which for me doesn't make sense because why charge people to rebuy games and then disregard their great history with lines like that? Now, of course, there's been news on this front indicating that Sony might in fact be doing back compat for the next generation of PlayStation consoles. Sony filed for a patent that was authored by Mark Cerny, the guy who designed the PlayStation 4, would allow the PS5 to run all previous PlayStation games, and that includes PlayStation 1 through 4. Now, of course, this could be a patent that they don't have the technology down just yet for, but I really hope they have this ready for the launch of the PS5 because it's such a hugely requested feature on the system. Not to mention in this day and age where digital has dominated the sales market, it would be unwise for Sony to not allow their customers to take all of their PS4 games that they built over this entire generation to the next console. All the while, Xbox has announced that they might even be forward compatible with their consoles and are almost certain to have backwards compatibility, which would allow their customers to take their collection of digital games with them over to the next Xbox. It's a no-brainer, Sony. I really hope that they have this, and some people have hinted at maybe the delays of the PlayStation 5 moving over to 2020 is because they want to get this backwards compatibility situation settled for the next generation, which would make me very happy. Now, the next two categories are more of a personal matter for me. While others might find what Sony is doing in these two fronts to be more than adequate, I have to speak up on the matters because I really feel they need to put far more attention on these. The first one is multiplayer games. I know Sony is basically the king of single player experiences, and the games they make in those genres are some of the best experience you'll have in a game. And those games, from what we've seen, aren't going anywhere. But this generation, I feel that Sony hasn't put any effort into making a solid multiplayer exclusive game that resonates with gamers. I know most people will point to Uncharted or Gran Turismo, but those games are not on the same level multiplayer wise or co-op wise as Halo, Gears, Forza, Sea of Thieves, and even State of Decay 2. I understand it's hard to make a competitive multiplayer game that resonates with a lot of gamers. I know the challenges with a project like that, but I do have to say I wouldn't mind a campaign co-op game that I could play with my friend on the PlayStation system. I find games to be a very social event. I'm a multiplayer-centric gamer that loves to play with his friends. We all make Halo and Gears almost an event that we all get together and beat on the hardest difficulty together. PlayStation has never given me an experience like that, and I really want them to change that next generation. The great news about this is that Sean Layden himself has hinted that PlayStation will focus more on multiplayer exclusives by saying, couch co-op, I mean, that's a whole category I think the industry needs to look back at. We have that with sports titles and some racing titles, but not much else. And I think that speaks to the power of the internet on the one hand, but otherwise we might want to revisit that to get more family engagement in the gaming experience. To me, this is a great starting point. I would love for Sony to have more first-party games that cater to the co-op experience. I truly love games that bring people together, and right now Xbox has that category on lockdown. Maybe Sony next generation could start focusing a little bit more of their resources towards making a better experience in the multiplayer front and co-op front. This next category might really annoy some people, and I understand how it could, but again, this is my personal preference. The DualShock 4 and the PlayStation controller in general needs a major overhaul. From the top down, I can't enjoy playing games for long periods of time on the PlayStation solely because of the controller. And I get why they couldn't fix this problem earlier, because it's a change that usually only happens when a new console comes out. Well, since next generation is right around the corner, I truly hope Sony puts a new team on the controller, because for the longest time I've had a very hard time enjoying games with their controller. Not only is it uncomfortable at times, but the battery life is completely abysmal. My DualShock controller would maybe last 7.5 hours straight without needing to be plugged in, and that's being generous, people. While my DualShock 3 controller from last generation would last 18 to 22 hours. I don't like the regression that the battery life had with the PlayStation controllers, and I find it very annoying that I have to charge the controller after only 6 hours of playtime. Not to mention, the triggers are very weird and awkward for me to play with. They don't feel like true triggers like the Xbox has, which I know is very specific and personal, so I don't expect people to agree with me on this, yet it's something I have to bring up. And these aren't the only problems the controller has faced this generation. I have multiple people buy new controllers because their triggers break for some weird reason. 4 of my friends own 2 to 4 PlayStation 4 controllers because their other ones broke with about a year of use due to the triggers breaking. It's a weird problem, but it's there. So next generation, I really hope PlayStation changes certain aspects of the controller, mainly the battery life. But I do know this won't change much, because Sony has stuck with their design for a very long time. Not to mention, a lot of people love PlayStation's controller design, and I'm willing to accept that I'm stuck with the controller next generation, but a little part of me hopes they kind of change a little bit more things for my personal preference. So to bring all this to a close, I have to say Sony has had an amazing generation, and I truly hope they keep pushing the boundaries in the gaming industry, because not only will this drive gaming further into the future, but it will make other companies in the rest of the gaming industry want to compete and keep up with them. But again, these are some areas that Sony could really improve upon when the next generation rolls around. And I want them to continue to make great games and provide their fans with great services and content, while they improve in areas that they might not have focused on this generation. So let's hope Sony goes into next generation with the mindset of improving the areas they can improve on, while also dominating what they know they're good at. Because while some people might think this is a hate video aimed at PlayStation, I hope they actually see it as a fan who wants them to improve and be better for next generation. But let me know what you guys think about all this. Go down below and tell me what you think PlayStation can improve on next generation. Do you want them to make a multiplayer focused game? Do you love the PlayStation controller? Would backwards compatibility be a welcomed addition to the console? Go down below and let me know what you think. I enjoy talking to everyone about gaming, so let's have a discussion, everyone. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please hit that subscribe button and that like button. Any support helps the channel out more than you know. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Zalker87. I'm always on there talking games and sharing my videos. Also follow me on Twitch. The link will be in the description. If you want to hang out and chat with me, I'm very active with my chat and always playing games there. So please go check me out. I hope to see you guys there. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. And until next time, remember, enjoy your gaming. Later.